On April 1st, 2026, Donald Trump stood before the world and announced that United States military objectives in Iran are, in his words, nearing completion. He spoke of surgical precision. He spoke of the degradation of the enemy. He spoke as if the board were being cleared. But behind the curtain, in the rooms where the cold logic of power is actually calculated, the mood is not one of triumph. It is one of structural alarm. The mainstream media is reporting on the end of the conflict. They are discussing a return to normalcy. They are ignoring the reality that the foundations of the global order have been permanently altered. The reality we face is far from what is being presented on the front pages. Donald Trump's statement is a masterpiece of political framing. By saying the mission is nearing completion, he is attempting to define the terms of victory before the costs become unsustainable. It is not an assessment of military reality. It is an exit strategy for a political calendar. United States military objectives in Iran are nearing completion. That was the sentence. But what are those objectives? If the objective was to decapitate the regime, they have failed. If the objective was to secure the Strait of Hormuz, they have failed. If the objective was to preserve the financial architecture of the West, the failure is total. That is not a mistake. That is a strategic catastrophe. Let us look at the first layer of the onion, the illusion of air superiority. The United States and Israel have spent 30 days dropping the most expensive munitions ever manufactured on Iranian soil. They have deployed the GBU-72 bunker busters. They have utilized the B-1B Lancer bombers. They have claimed to destroy 90% of Iranian offensive capacity. But air superiority does not equal geographical control. In the narrow corridor of the Strait of Hormuz, which is barely 30 kilometers wide, your stealth technology is irrelevant. You cannot hide a $13 billion aircraft carrier in a bathtub. The Iranian coastline is a natural fortress of limestone ridges and deep tunnel networks. These are not just bunkers. These are underground cities. Iran has spent 4 decades preparing for this exact month. While Washington was focusing on the high-tech, Tehran was focusing on the asymmetrical. They do not need to win an aerial dogfight. They only need to make the cost of staying in the water too high to pay. And right now, the mathematics of that cost are becoming a bankruptcy proceeding. Think about the ratio of cost to consequence. This is the second layer of our analysis. The United States fires a missile that costs $2 million to intercept a drone that costs $20,000. Iran is launching drones in simultaneous, saturating swarms. Even if the defense systems work 99% of the time, the 1% that gets through is what matters. A single drone striking a radar dome on a destroyer does not just cause damage. It blinds the entire carrier strike group. The mathematics of this conflict are inverted. For every dollar Iran spends to put a threat in the air, the United States must spend $50 to remove it. You cannot win a war of attrition when your opponent is using lawnmower engines and cardboard to drain your national treasury. The United States is using a silver bullet to kill a fly, and Iran has a billion flies. This brings us to the second-order effect that the official briefings want you to ignore: the erosion of the petrodollar. For 50 years, the American global hegemony has rested on a single pillar. Oil is sold in dollars. This creates a permanent structural demand for the American currency. It allows the United States to run deficits that would destroy any other nation. But what happens when the Strait of Hormuz is no longer a free waterway? What happens when Iran begins charging a transit toll of $2 million per vessel? And what happens when they demand that payment in Chinese yuan? This is not speculation. It is already happening. 2 ships have already paid the Iranian toll in yuan. This is the first crack in an architecture that has stood since 1974, and financial cracks do not heal on their own. They expand until the entire structure collapses. That is why you will pay 20% more for your fuel next month. It is not because of a shortage of oil. It is because the insurance companies in London have looked at the geography and decided that the American security umbrella is no longer a guarantee. It is a gamble. Geography is destiny, and the geography of the Gulf belongs to Tehran. Now consider the unintended consequences of the decapitation strategy. The United States killed the supreme leader on February 28th. They thought they were creating a power vacuum. They thought the regime would implode from within. They modeled their strategy on the hope of a popular uprising. But the mathematics of hatred do not work that way. By killing the leader, they did not destroy the system. They hardened it. The successor, Mojtaba Khamenei, is younger, more radical, and far more motivated than his father. He does not have a decade to wait for a legacy. He is building one right now in the fire of this conflict. The CIA thought they were removing a threat. In reality, they were removing the only person in the Iranian leadership who remembered a time before the revolution. They replaced a pragmatic survivor with a vengeful zealot. That was not a tactical success. It was a strategic suicide. Trump says the objectives are nearing completion, but the reality is that the United States is being forced into a face-saving exit before the midterm elections in November. The political calendar is the only reason this war is nearing completion. Voters in the United States do not care about the tactical data of bunker busters. They care about the lived reality of energy prices. They care about the body bags coming home from a war that has no defined objective. When the price of gasoline hits $7 a gallon, the narrative of nearing completion becomes a political liability. Washington needs a way out. But they have entered a strategic cul-de-sac. If they withdraw now, Iran remains the dominant power in the Gulf. If they stay, they continue to burn through their interceptor stockpiles at a rate that manufacturing cannot match. Lo Numgok is reportedly acknowledging that it does not have a complete picture of Iranian launch capacity. This is a polite way of saying they are operating in the dark. The official briefings will tell you that the enemy is degraded. They will tell you that the Hamdoi is safe. They will tell you that the world is more secure. The reality is that the era of American naval dominance in the Gulf is ending. The Iranian blinding strategy is working. They are targeting the radar networks. They are targeting the satellite communications. They are targeting the eyes of the American military. Without eyes, the most advanced weapons in the world are just very expensive pieces of metal. We must also look at the role of Russia and China. This conflict is not happening in isolation. Russia is providing the real-time satellite coordinates. China is providing the microelectronics for the drones. They are watching a superpower get bogged down in a geographical trap. They are watching the American interceptor stockpiles get depleted. They are the ones who are truly nearing completion. Completion of the dismantling of the Western-led order. This is the strategic reality that the news cycle is ignoring. They want you to focus on the podium speeches and the official statements. But the truth is found in the tanker tracking data. It is found in the bond yield movements. It is found in the legislative drafting of the Iranian parliament. The war is nearing completion only because the cost of continuing it has exceeded the benefit of fighting it. The United States entered this conflict to secure energy flows and protect the dollar. They are leaving it with energy prices at record highs and the dollar under its most serious threat in 50 years. That is not victory. That is a liquidation sale. The board is shifting, and the official narrative is trying to keep up. In the next part of this briefing, we will look at the specific tactical failures of the naval defense systems. We will mosaic the 101 missiles statement, and we will analyze why the European allies have decided that this war is a suicide operation. The onion has many more layers, and each one is more unsettling than the last. Donald Trump has stated that the mission is nearing completion. But the reality in the Arabian Sea tells a different story. The story of an aircraft carrier strike group that is currently absorbing the consequences of a war it was never designed to win. Let us look at the mathematics of saturation. This is the core of the Iranian strategy. On March 25th, Donald Trump made a statement that should have ended the career of his entire communications team. He claimed that 101 Iranian missiles were fired at the United States ship Abraham Lincoln. He claimed that 100% were intercepted. In the world of physics, this is a lie. In the theater of strategic realism, it is a confession of vulnerability. The Aegis combat system is a marvel of engineering. It is a multi-billion-dollar shield, but it is a finite shield. To intercept 101 missiles, you must launch at least 101 interceptors. You must achieve 101 simultaneous radar locks. You must manage 101 terminal engagements. Saturation is not a choice. It is a law of physics. When you launch more incoming threats than the defense system can track, the shield fails. Even if the success rate was 95%, 5 missiles would have hit the carrier. 5 missiles would have turned a $13 billion asset into a burning monument to American overreach. Washington is claiming a perfect score, while the smoke is still visible from space. The second-order effect of this engagement is the liquidation of the interceptor stockpile. Every Patriot missile costs over $4 million. Every TAID interceptor costs $12 million. Iran is using missiles that cost $50,000. This is a bankruptcy proceeding disguised as a naval battle. The United States is burning through years of production in weeks. We are seeing a strategic inversion, where the most expensive military in history is being bled dry by the most cost-effective one. This is not a victory. It is a mathematical liquidation. Now, let us examine the strategic paradox of the alliance with the United Kingdom. Donald Trump republished a comedy sketch mocking British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. He portrayed his closest ally as a coward. He did this hours before asking the Royal Navy to help clear mines in the Strait of Hormuz. This is a failure of leadership that will have consequences for a generation. The United States Navy lacks the specialized mine-clearing capability required for the shallow waters of the Strait. The Royal Navy possesses that capability. It is the one thing Washington needs and cannot buy. To publicly humiliate the leader of the only nation willing to help you is a strategic error of the highest order. Germany has already called the mine-clearing mission a suicide operation. France has negotiated a separate peace. Italy and Spain have declined to participate. The United Kingdom was the last partner standing. By turning the British Prime Minister into a punchline, Trump has converted a partnership into a submission. Leverage is not cooperation, and a humiliated ally is a useless ally. The reality behind the curtain is that the special relationship is dead. It has been replaced by a transaction, and the cost of that transaction is the loss of American credibility across the entire European theater. Let us look at the economic heart of this conflict. The news reports focus on the energy crisis. They speak of a return to the 1970s, but this is far worse than the 1970s. In 1973, the disruption was a political choice by the oil-producing nations. In 2026, the disruption is a physical reality of the battlefield. When the Ras Tanura refinery in Saudi Arabia was taken offline, the capacity to process oil did not just stop, it was destroyed. When Qatar Energy suspended its natural gas production, the energy lifeline of Europe was severed. This is not a negotiation. It is an attrition of the global supply chain. The petrodollar is the air that Washington breathes. It is what allows the United States to run a debt of $34 trillion. But the petrodollar requires two things. Oil must be sold in dollars, and the United States must protect the oil. Right now, the United States cannot protect the oil, and Iran is demanding payment in Chinese yuan to transit the strait. This is the end game of the conflict. If the world no longer needs dollars to buy energy, the American economy becomes a house of cards. The petrodollar was built on the promise of security. That promise is currently sinking in the Persian Gulf. The American consumer is seeing the first signs of this collapse at the gasoline pump. $7 a gallon is not just a high price. It is a political earthquake. Trump is nearing completion because he has a midterm election in November. He needs the war to stop before the economy destroys his party. But Tehran is not operating on a political calendar. They are operating on a civilizational timeline. They have seen the Zoom war. They have seen American soldiers managing a conflict from hotel rooms in Europe because their bases in Iraq and the United Arab Emirates are no longer safe. They have seen the world's most advanced fighter jets being engaged by coastal batteries. The superpower is retreating into a digital bunker. The final layer of the onion is the survival strategy. Iran has realized that they do not need to sink the Hamdoi. They only need to outlast the American political tolerance for pain. Every day the war continues, the cost to Washington increases. Every day the strait remains closed, the petrodollar weakens. Iran is winning by not losing. The United States is losing by not winning. Trump says the objectives are nearing completion, but he has achieved none of his primary goals. The Iranian regime is more unified than ever. The nuclear program is now a strategic necessity for their survival. The regional allies of the United States are looking for a way out. The United States is declaring victory while the foundations of its power are being liquidated. The successor problem remains the most dangerous unintended consequence. Mujtaba Khamenei is watching the American retreat. He is seeing the exhaustion of the interceptor stockpiles. He is seeing the failure of the maximum pressure campaign. He is the one who will define the post-war order in the Middle East, and he has no interest in the Western version of peace. The mainstream narrative is a distraction. They want you to focus on the podiums and the press conferences. But the reality is found in the tanker tracking data. It is found in the empty missile tubes of the destroyers. It is found in the rising yields of the bond markets. The board has shifted. The geography has asserted its dominance. And the official version of the war is nearing completion only because the official version has lost its grip on reality. The architecture of deterrence has been tested, and it has failed. As we move into the final phase of this conflict, the question is no longer about Iran. The question is about the United States. How much of its global credibility is it willing to sacrifice to maintain the illusion of victory? The answer will be found in the coming months as the midterms approach and the bills for this war finally come due. The world is watching. The allies are recalibrating. And the geography remains, as always, the only God that does not change its mind. Behind the narrative, the structural reality is a liquidation of the old order. The official narrative is an illusion designed for the crowd. The structural reality belongs to those who perceive the shift behind the curtain. Master the data of this new strategic reality and position yourself ahead of the inevitable reconfiguration of global power.